It's one of those moments when you wonder how something like this could happen. There's no owner in sight, just this tiny creature standing in the middle of the sidewalk, as if waiting for someone to notice it. You bend down, trying to comfort it, but as you reach out, you realize this isn't just any ordinary dog. No, this one is different. The moment your hand touches its fur, everything changes, and the mystery begins. Now, I want you to stop right here and think for a second, how far would you go to solve a mystery like this? A lost dog, with no tags, no collar, no clear sign of where it belongs, and yet, something about this situation feels off. You feel that, don't you? It's like there's something more at play here, something deeper, waiting to be uncovered. And trust me, by the end of this video, you're going to find out the one thing that will leave you absolutely stunned. I promise you, you won't believe it, and you'll never look at lost dogs the same way again. Stay with me. I'm not here just to tell you a story. No, this is your story now. You're going to want to know exactly what happens next, because the twist will have you second-guessing everything you thought you knew about fate, destiny, and even royalty. And hey, don't worry. This isn't your usual tale of a lost pet. There's a bigger picture here, and I'm going to unravel it piece by piece, layer by layer, so you can experience every heart-pounding moment with me. The dog's eyes were more than just the tired, lonely eyes of a stray. They were full of something else, something unspoken, something royal. Yes, you heard that right. Royalty. But at that moment, there was no way to know just how closely tied this dog was to a world that most of us can only dream about. That's the secret I'm about to reveal to you. I'm not going to give it all away just yet, but let's rewind a bit to the very first moment this lost dog appeared. The dog wasn't just any mutt or street dog. No, this dog had been through something. Its coat was a little too clean for an animal living on the streets. It had a certain poise, if you will. You could tell that this wasn't just a regular stray looking for food. Something about it screamed importance, something about it whispered that this was a creature who had lived a different life before all of this. And this is where the true mystery begins to unfold. This is the part that I need you to pay attention to. What would you do if you were in this situation? Would you walk away? Or would you try to find out where this dog came from? Well, our story's heroine, let's call her MIA for now, decided that she wasn't going to just ignore this little creature. She couldn't. Something about it just pulled at her heartstrings in a way that felt inevitable. But MIA didn't know just how deep this rabbit hole would go when she decided to take the dog in. And let's be honest here, what happens next will completely flip the script. After a few days of searching for any signs of an owner, MIA came across something strange. She wasn't looking for any clues, but one day while out for a walk with the dog, a man approached her with a question that would change everything. He looked at the dog, and then at MIA, with a look that screamed urgency. But the strange part. He didn't ask if the dog belonged to her. Instead, he asked if she had found the dog. And from there, the entire world MIA thought she knew would never be the same. Now, I'm sure you're wondering what's so special about this man. Why was he so desperate to know where the dog had come from? Was he a pet owner who had lost his beloved pet? Was he simply worried about the dog's safety? At first, it seemed that way. But trust me, the truth was far stranger than anyone could have ever imagined. I know what you're thinking. You're probably asking yourself, what could possibly be the big reveal? Why should I keep watching? Well, the answer to that question is simple. The dog was only the beginning. This man, the one who MIA thought was just another concerned citizen, turns out, he wasn't who he appeared to be. His questions, his mannerisms, and his presence. All part of something far larger than any of us could have guessed. Are you intrigued yet? You should be. Because what happens next is something that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about fate, destiny, and even how you view the world around you. The man's true identity comes to light, and it's a revelation that no one could have predicted. But I'm not going to spoil that for you just yet. Instead, I'm going to let the story unfold at its own pace, keeping you hooked and wanting more. By the time this is all said and done, you'll be hooked on this mystery, and I guarantee you won't be able to stop thinking about it. But before I reveal the shocking truth behind the man's identity and how this lost dog was tied to royalty, I need you to ask yourself one question. How far would you go to protect someone or something that seemed completely out of your reach? Would you risk everything for the truth, even if it meant stepping into a world that was foreign and dangerous? That's the path MIA had to walk. She had to make a choice, and it wasn't just about whether or not to trust this stranger. It was about deciding how much of her own life she was willing to risk for the sake of the dog and ultimately, for the man she had yet to realize was a prince. The deeper MIA dug, the more she realized that this wasn't just some coincidence. The dog's sudden appearance in her life wasn't random. No, it was a catalyst, a turning point in her life that would open up doors she never expected to walk through. And I'm telling you, the door behind that dog wasn't one she could have ever imagined opening. I know you're sitting there on the edge of your seat, eager to find out how this all plays out. Well, let me tell you this, you're not going to want to miss the twist that's coming. Stay tuned, because the mystery isn't over yet. It's only just begun. You won't believe who this man really is or how he's connected to the dog. And when you find out, trust me, you'll never look at a lost dog the same way again. So stick around. I've got a story that's about to change everything you thought you knew about fate, destiny, and a little lost dog who holds the key to it all. Keep watching, because trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. MIA had always been a woman who lived a quiet life. She wasn't one to seek attention or chase after excitement. In fact, she had been going through a bit of a rough patch lately, trying to figure out what her next steps were in a world that seemed to be moving faster than she could keep up with. Her job at the local art gallery was fulfilling but didn't exactly pay the bills like she hoped it would. Her social life had been mostly limited to the occasional coffee with friends and long evening walks, trying to clear her mind. But even though she had her own sense of stability, something had felt off for months now, like she was waiting for some big change to happen, even though she didn't know exactly what that change would be. In the days leading up to finding the lost dog, MIA had been spending more time in the park than usual. The trees had started shedding their leaves, and the crisp autumn air was a welcome escape from the mundane. Her life had felt somewhat predictable until that fateful moment when the dog appeared, and everything shifted. For a brief second, she thought the dog had wandered out of someone's yard, or maybe it was just one of those random, stray animals that everyone saw around town. But as she knelt down to pet it, there was something in its eyes that stopped her in her tracks. It wasn't just the vulnerability of a lost creature. It was the unsettling sense that there was more to this dog's presence than she could have ever imagined. After that, MIA couldn't just leave the dog behind. She couldn't bring herself to walk away and forget about it like so many others would have. There was an odd pull to it, something magnetic, as if it was calling to her in ways she couldn't quite explain. So, she took the dog home, made sure it had food and water, and set up a little bed for it by the door. She didn't know what to do next, but she knew she couldn't just ignore the situation. But what she didn't realize then was that this seemingly simple decision would soon become a tangled mess of secrets, lies, and a reality that felt far removed from anything she had ever known. The next day, she took the dog to the local vet to check for any microchips or identification. That was when the first red flag popped up, no chip. The vet also mentioned that the dog seemed to be in remarkably good shape for a stray. It wasn't a common sight. Sure, a dog might be well cared for, but this one's coat and demeanor were too pristine for someone who had been living on the streets. That little nugget of information unsettled MIA more than she'd let on, but she shrugged it off. She'd continue to look for its owner, and eventually, everything would make sense. But in the back of her mind, doubts started to creep in. Who would leave such a well-cared-for animal to wander the streets alone? It wasn't long before MIA began asking around, putting up posters and posting about the dog online. The responses she got were strange. A few people claimed to have seen similar-looking dogs in the neighborhood, but no one could give her any concrete information. Some were convinced the dog was lost, while others seemed overly eager to find out more, like they were too invested in the matter. MIA found herself growing increasingly wary of these people, but at the same time, she couldn't help but be intrigued. There was something unsettlingly mysterious about this whole situation. It didn't feel like the typical stray dog story. No, this was different, and MIA could sense it. There was a shadow hanging over it, and she was unknowingly walking straight into it. Then came the day she met the man in the park. He didn't seem like anyone special at first. Just another jogger, another person passing through the park on a crisp morning. But when he stopped and looked at her, there was something in his eyes, an intensity she couldn't quite explain. His question about whether the dog was hers didn't seem like a simple inquiry. It felt loaded, as if he knew something that she didn't. His face was calm, almost too calm, and his gaze never wavered from the dog. Mia hesitated. Her gut told her something wasn't right. But before she could respond, he was already walking away, disappearing into the crowd of people, as if he had never been there at all. It was an odd encounter that left her more unsettled than she cared to admit. Over the next few days, Mia tried to focus on her daily life, but the mystery of the dog and the strange man lingered. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Strange phone calls with no one on the other end, an unfamiliar car parked outside her apartment for hours on end, and even the occasional person who seemed to stare a little too long when she was out walking the dog. It was all enough to put her on edge, but she tried to keep it together, rationalizing it all as coincidence. After all, she lived in a city, and strange things happened all the time. But Mia couldn't ignore the growing sense that someone or something was following her every move. Then came the second encounter with the man. This time, he was standing on her doorstep, looking strangely out of place in his crisp suit and tie. He introduced himself as David, though he didn't give any other details about who he was or what he wanted. His request was simple enough. He wanted to know where the dog had come from. But there was an urgency in his voice that Mia couldn't ignore. It was as if he was trying to hide something, trying to cover up the real reason for his interest in the dog. She hadn't told him much during their first meeting, but now she found herself sharing every detail, every small clue she could recall, about the dog's mysterious appearance. And in return, he gave her nothing. Not a word of comfort or reassurance, not an explanation for why he needed to know so badly. Just a cold, unwavering look that made Mia's heart race. The more she thought about it, the more suspicious it seemed. She began to wonder if David wasn't just another concerned citizen. Was he part of some secret organization? Was he connected to the dog's mysterious origins? Or was there something even darker at play? The idea that the dog might have been stolen, or worse, involved in something illegal, crossed her mind. But that seemed far-fetched, didn't it? After all, who would go through so much trouble for a dog? As the days passed, Mia became more and more entangled in a web of uncertainty. She started to look for connections in the strangest places, old news reports, random people she spoke to in the park, even online forums. She found nothing definitive, but every step she took brought her closer to an unsettling realization. No one in her life, no one she could trust, seemed to have any answers. And with every new piece of information, the mystery grew bigger and more confusing. Who was David? And why was this dog so important? But here's where things get truly eerie. Because just when Mia thought she couldn't be any more confused, something happened that made her question everything. She found out that David wasn't just some random stranger. No, he wasn't even from around here. In fact, he wasn't even from this country. And that, my friends, is where things start to get real. Because when you find out who David really is and how he's connected to the dog, it's going to blow your mind. But we're not there yet. Not yet. Stay with me, because what happens next will take this mystery to places you never saw coming. The twists and turns are about to get a lot more intense, and I promise you, this story is far from over. You said. As the days passed, the weight of the mystery began to settle heavily on Mia's shoulders. The more she dug into David's background, the more she uncovered, but the more elusive the truth became. Her online searches, which had once felt like a path to understanding, now seemed like they were taking her in circles. Every lead, every piece of information she thought she'd gathered, ended up pointing to dead ends or, even worse, misleading conclusions. The walls seemed to be closing in, and just when she thought she was close to breaking the case wide open, the universe seemed intent on shutting her down. It started with the disappearance of a key piece of evidence, something that could have proven everything she suspected about David. While scrolling through some old records from the vet's office that she'd managed to access, Lily took a deep breath, looking down at her hands. The dog. The golden key. I didn't know until now, but I've seen it before. A long time ago, back when I was working in high society. There's a family, a very powerful family, connected to the dog. And David, she trailed off, shaking her head. I never thought it would come to this, but it's worse than you think. The dog isn't just a pet, MIA. It's a symbol. And the people behind all of this, they don't want anyone knowing the truth. MIA could feel the tension building in the pit of her stomach. What truth? What's really going on here? Lily's eyes darted around once more, and she leaned in even closer. The dog, it's connected to a royal family, MIA. Not just any family, but one with power, money, and secrets that go back decades. You're tangled up in something you have no idea about. And David, he's not just some stranger. He's part of it. I thought he was just some guy, but he's not. He's one of them. And the golden key, it's the final piece. It unlocks something important, something that will expose everything. Before MIA could process what Lily was saying, the door to the cafe opened with a loud creak. Mia's heart skipped a beat as she turned to see who had entered. Her eyes widened in disbelief when she saw who it was. David. He was standing in the doorway, looking directly at them, his gaze cold and calculating. Lily froze, her face paling. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. We have to go. Now, she hissed. But before MIA could respond, David was already walking toward them, a slow, deliberate pace that made Mia's skin crawl. You shouldn't have come here, David said, his voice smooth but carrying an underlying threat. You've made a mistake, both of you. Lily stepped back, her hands trembling. I didn't have a choice. I had to warn her. David didn't acknowledge Lily. His eyes were fixed on MIA. You don't understand the gravity of what you're dealing with. The dog, the key, all of it, it's not just some random coincidence. You're involved in something far bigger than you realize. MIA felt a surge of panic. What are you talking about? What do you want from me? David's expression didn't change. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to make you understand. The key you hold, it's the key to unlocking something that could destroy everything. The family doesn't want it out there. And neither do I. So, I suggest you forget about it, MIA. It's not worth your life. Lily's voice shook as she spoke. We can't let them win, David. You know what they're capable of. We can't back down now. David's face hardened. Then you both leave me no choice. He turned and walked out of the cafe, leaving a silence that was thick with tension. MIA and Lily stared at each other, both too shocked to speak. Before MIA could process what had just happened, she felt a sudden rush of movement behind her. She spun around just in time to see a figure slip out of the cafe's back door. It wasn't David, this was someone else, someone MIA didn't recognize. A man, tall, dressed in dark clothing, his face obscured by a cap. He moved swiftly, almost as if he knew exactly what MIA would do next. And in that moment, MIA realized that she was no longer in control of the situation. The game had changed again. The stakes had just been raised, and now there were more players involved than she ever could have anticipated. What did the golden key unlock? What did Lily know, and why had David warned MIA? More importantly, who was the shadowy figure that had just disappeared into the night? With each answer came more questions, and MIA knew that the road ahead would be more dangerous than she had ever imagined. But there was no turning back now. She had to find out the truth. She had to uncover the secrets that had been buried for far too long. And the deeper she went, the more she realized that not everyone could be trusted, not even Lily. The next few days felt like a blur to MIA. Every time she thought she could finally catch her breath, another twist in the story pulled her deeper into a nightmare that she could no longer ignore. The warning David had given her hung over her like a storm cloud, and the mysterious figure who had disappeared into the night only intensified her fear. She couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was watching her. Every turn, every shadow, every unfamiliar car parked outside her apartment made her heart race. She couldn't go anywhere without feeling like eyes were on her, lurking just out of sight, waiting for her to make a move. She tried to tell herself that she was being paranoid, that it was all in her head, but the uneasy feeling that had taken root in her chest refused to let go. It wasn't just the key anymore, it wasn't just about the dog. No, the situation had spiraled far beyond that. MIA was tangled in something dark, something dangerous, and the people involved had no intention of letting her walk away unscathed. She wasn't just investigating a mystery now, she was a part of it, and she was starting to realize that the deeper she went, the harder it would be to ever escape. The turning point came late one night, when Mia's phone buzzed on the table beside her, pulling her from a restless sleep. She groggily reached for it, her hands still trembling from the nightmare she'd woken up from. The text was from Lily. At first, it seemed like just another cryptic message, "We need to meet. They know. It's too late." But the urgency in the words, the panic that practically leaped off the screen, sent a jolt of fear through MIA. She'd been trying to reach Lily for days, but her calls and texts had gone unanswered. Now, this. Without thinking, MIA threw on her coat and rushed out of her apartment, barely pausing to lock the door behind her. She had to find Lily, had to understand what was happening before it was too late. The streets were eerily quiet, the city lights flickering above her as she made her way to the alley where they had planned to meet. Every footstep echoed in the night, making her feel more exposed, more vulnerable with each passing second. When MIA reached the alley, she found it empty, the only sound the hum of distant traffic. Her breath clouded in the cold air, and a sense of dread settled in her stomach. She was just about to send another text to Lily, hoping for some kind of response, when she heard an odd scuffing sound from behind her. Spinning around, MIA saw nothing, but she knew that someone was there, that someone was following her. Her heart pounded in her chest as she quickened her pace, walking faster, faster, until she broke into a full sprint. She didn't dare look back. It wasn't until she reached the corner of the street that she dared to slow down, her breath coming in quick, shallow gasps. She turned, hoping to spot Lily or the mysterious figure who had been tailing her, but there was nothing. The street was empty. It was as if the world had swallowed them both whole. Panic surged through Mia's veins, a cold sweat dripping down her spine. She called Lily's number again, but the line went straight to voicemail. For a moment, MIA just stood there, frozen. This wasn't right. None of this was right. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw something she hadn't expected, a figure stepping out of the shadows, a man she recognized only vaguely. David. MIA, he said softly, his voice too calm, too detached. I told you to stop looking. Mia's stomach dropped. Where's Lily? She demanded, her voice shaking, barely able to hold it together. What have you done to her? David didn't flinch. Instead, he smiled, a chilling expression that sent a shiver through her body. She's fine. For now. But you need to understand something. This is bigger than you realize. People like me, people like the family behind the dog, we don't let things like this slip through the cracks. He took a step closer, his eyes locking with hers. And people like you, MIA, are not meant to be part of this world. You've crossed a line. Fear began to claw at Mia's chest. This wasn't just a warning anymore. This was a threat, and it was very real. David wasn't just trying to scare her, he was making sure she understood that she was in deep, far deeper than she could have imagined. The key, the dog, the royal family, it was all connected, and she was now a part of their dangerous game. Before she could respond, David's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and then at MIA, his expression unreadable. He didn't answer it, but something in his eyes shifted, a flicker of recognition, maybe even apprehension. You need to leave this city, he said, his voice low and almost gentle. Go somewhere safe. Before it's too late. Mia's head was spinning. She wanted to scream at him, ask him what he meant, demand that he tell her everything, but she didn't have the strength. Not now. She was alone, with no one to trust. She took a step back, the reality of the situation hitting her all at once. She was being hunted. There was no denying it. Every move she made, every step she took, was being watched. And Lily? Was she part of this game, too? Or had she been dragged in the same way MIA had, someone who had simply stumbled upon a world they never should have entered? Suddenly, Mia's phone vibrated in her pocket, pulling her from her thoughts. She fumbled to take it out, her fingers shaking as she unlocked the screen. The message was from an unknown number. You should have stayed out of this, MIA. The next time we meet, it won't be a warning. Stay away from the key. The words sent a chill down her spine. There it was again, the key. It was more than just a trinket now. It was the focal point of everything. She glanced around, her mind racing. She couldn't stay here. She couldn't trust anyone. But where could she go? Who could she turn to? She needed answers, and she needed them fast. But the deeper she went, the more dangerous it became. Every person she thought she could rely on had their own secrets, their own hidden motives. And now, MIA had no choice but to keep moving forward, to follow the clues and find the truth before it was too late. But as she walked away, the haunting thought lingered. Was there anyone left she could trust? Or had they all been playing her from the start? Mia's mind was racing as she walked through the dimly lit streets, the weight of everything pressing down on her. She had thought that she was close to uncovering the truth about the golden key, the royal family, the dog, and most of all, David. But the more she learned, the more the answers slipped further from her grasp. Every step felt like it was taking her deeper into a labyrinth with no exit. And then, just when she thought she had nothing more to lose, something happened that completely changed everything. It came in the form of a message, a text that shattered the fragile reality MIA had been clinging to. It was from an unknown number, the same kind of message she had received before, only this time, the words sent a chill down her spine in a way she couldn't explain. You've been looking in the wrong places, MIA. The truth isn't where you think it is. Trust no one. At first, MIA didn't know what to make of it. Was it another threat, another cryptic warning from someone trying to keep her in the dark? But then, a sudden thought struck her like a bolt of lightning. What if everything she'd been told so far, everything she'd believed, had been a lie? What if the dog, the key, and even David weren't the answers, but distractions from the real truth? She had spent so much time chasing a trail of breadcrumbs that she hadn't stopped to consider what she might have missed. As if on cue, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a call. She didn't recognize the number, but she answered it anyway, her heart pounding in her chest as she put the phone to her ear. MIA, a voice whispered on the other end, low and familiar, sending a wave of unease through her. It was Lily. "May, you have to listen to me." Lily's voice trembled with urgency. "I've been trying to warn you, but I couldn't find a way to explain. Everything you've been told is a lie. David, the key, the dog, it's all part of a much bigger scheme, and you've been played. I didn't want to be involved in this anymore, but I have no choice now. You have to trust me. The people you've been trusting, they're not who they say they are." Mia's pulse quickened. "What do you mean? What's really going on, Lily? You're not making any sense. What's the real story here?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and for a moment, MIA thought the call had dropped. Then Lily spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "It was never about the royal family. It was never about the key or the dog. It was about you, MIA. You've been searching for answers in the wrong places, but you've been part of this all along. The real mystery, it's you." MIA froze, her mind scrambling to process the words. "What do you mean, it's me? I don't understand." Lily took a deep breath. "You were never just a random person caught up in all of this. They didn't send the dog to you by chance. You were chosen, MIA. Chosen for something much bigger than any of us could have imagined. The family, the key, David, it's all been a setup. The truth is, you're connected to them, connected to everything that's been happening. You just didn't know it." The realization hit MIA like a ton of bricks. All this time, she had been investigating someone else's secrets, someone else's life, thinking she was just an innocent bystander. But now, Lily was telling her something that turned everything upside down. She was the key. She was the connection. The dog had been sent to her for a reason. David wasn't just a mysterious stranger, he was involved in this plan, just like everyone else. And that meant she was in deeper than she could ever have imagined. But before MIA could respond, the line went dead. She called Lily back, but there was no answer. Her phone screen was filled with unanswered texts and missed calls, all from Lily. Mia's anxiety grew with every passing second. Was this some kind of trick? Or was it the truth? Had she been living in a carefully constructed lie, all along? Just as MIA was about to give in to the panic that was clawing at her chest, a voice interrupted her thoughts. You're asking the wrong questions, MIA. She spun around, the hairs on the back of her neck standing on end. Standing there, just a few feet away, was David. I told you, he said, his voice calm but carrying an edge of finality. I told you not to dig any deeper. MIA felt her heart race as she took a step back. She was on the edge of something now, something that could destroy everything she thought she knew. The truth about the dog, the key, the royal family, it was all starting to fall apart, and it was all leading back to her. But what was the truth? What had she missed? She had spent so much time trying to piece the puzzle together, but now it felt like the pieces didn't fit anymore. David took a step closer, his eyes fixed on hers with a strange intensity. It doesn't matter what you think you know. The key, the dog, it's all a smokescreen. You're not just a random person in this story, MIA. You're part of the plan. MIA could feel the weight of his words pressing down on her, and for the first time, a chilling realization sank in. She had been a pawn in a game much bigger than herself. The entire mystery she had been chasing was a diversion, a carefully constructed facade designed to keep her focused on the wrong things. And now, as the pieces of the puzzle began to shift, she realized that the answers she had been desperately searching for weren't even close to what she had imagined. She was the key player in a game she didn't fully understand, and the people involved, David, Lily, the mysterious royal family, had all been working together to manipulate her. David stepped closer, his voice softer now, almost sympathetic. You've been searching for answers, MIA, but sometimes, the truth is worse than the lies we tell ourselves. Before she could respond, David turned, disappearing into the night as quickly as he had appeared. MIA stood there, alone, the cold air pressing against her skin, the weight of everything that had just been revealed sinking in. There were so many questions left unanswered. Why had Lily warned her if she was part of it all? What was the real reason MIA was involved in this dangerous web of deceit? And what did David mean by worse than the lies? In that moment, MIA realized that the mystery she had been chasing was far from over. It had just shifted into something far darker and more dangerous than she had ever anticipated. And the deeper she dug, the more she began to wonder, was she truly the one in control, or had she been a puppet all along? MIA stood there, trembling in the cold, the weight of David's words echoing in her mind, consuming her every thought. She was in too deep. There was no turning back. What had started as a simple search for answers, a simple mystery, had spiraled into something much darker, something she could barely comprehend. Every person she thought she could trust had either turned against her or revealed themselves as players in a much larger game, and now, MIA was left with a choice that seemed impossible. Should she continue down this path, risking everything for the truth, or should she walk away and protect herself from the storm that was surely about to break over her? The question gnawed at her, tormenting her with its intensity. And yet, as much as she tried to avoid it, there was no escaping it. She had to know the truth. But at what cost? As the days passed, MIA found herself growing more isolated. Lily, once her closest confidant, had vanished without a trace. MIA had reached out to her countless times, but every attempt to connect was met with silence. She couldn't even trust her own phone anymore. Every message she received seemed like part of a twisted puzzle, each one revealing just enough to keep her hooked but not enough to make any real sense. She couldn't ignore it anymore. The truth was just beyond her grasp, and the closer she got, the more dangerous it became. There were moments when MIA wondered if she had made a mistake, if she should have turned away when she had the chance, but the fear of never knowing kept her moving forward. What if she left it all behind, only to find out she had walked away from the one thing that could explain everything? No. She couldn't stop now. The stakes were too high. It was during one of her sleepless nights that MIA received a call from someone she hadn't expected, her brother, Ethan. The same Ethan who had been distant for years, the same one who had always played it safe, stayed out of the messes that MIA often found herself in. He was the last person MIA thought would have any answers, but his voice, filled with concern, caught her off guard. MIA, he said, his voice tight with urgency, you need to stop. Now. This thing, whatever you're involved in, it's bigger than you realize. People are watching you. I've been hearing things that suggest you're not just caught in the middle of it. You are the target. Her heart skipped a beat. She wanted to brush him off, tell him that he didn't understand, but his voice held an undeniable edge. Ethan never spoke like this, never with this kind of raw fear. And then, just as quickly as the moment of shock had settled in, he said the one thing that made everything even more complicated. I'm involved in this too. And you don't know who you can trust. Her pulse spiked, and she suddenly felt the ground beneath her feet crumble. Ethan. The same brother who had always been the one to keep things calm, who had kept his distance from her messy life, was now telling her that he was part of whatever was happening. But what did that mean? Was he in this against his will? Had he been manipulated, like her? Or worse, was he one of the people pulling the strings behind the scenes? I don't have much time, Ethan continued, his voice strained. The family, the key, it's all connected. And I'm going to help you, but you have to trust me. You have to stop going down this path. You can't dig any deeper. You're not safe. None of us are. The words hit her like a gut punch, the weight of them pressing down on her chest. Mea felt as if she were suffocating, every breath she took heavy with the realization that the only person she had left to rely on might not even be who he seemed. Was he trying to protect her, or was he part of the deception? Was Ethan involved in the very conspiracy she had been investigating? For a moment, she considered the possibility of running, of leaving everything behind and disappearing. But the thought was quickly squashed. She couldn't just walk away now. She had come too far. Mia knew there was no turning back, no safe place to run to. She was in too deep, tangled in a web of lies and betrayals, and every move she made only made things more dangerous. She couldn't afford to let fear control her anymore. She had to push forward. But just as she made up her mind to confront Ethan and demand answers, the phone rang again. This time, it was from an unknown number. The voice on the other end was distorted, heavily masked, but the words were chilling. Mia, you're running out of time. You're not the only one looking for answers. You're not the only one with a key. Stop looking, or things will get worse for everyone you love. Your brother is already too deep. Don't make it worse. The connection went dead before Mia could respond. She stared at her phone, her mind reeling. What did they mean by too deep? And who else had a key? She had thought she was the only one, thought that the royal family, the dog, the key, it all led back to her. But now, it seemed like there were others out there, others who knew far more than they were letting on. And her brother, Ethan, the one person she thought might be her ally, was now a part of this twisted game. Mia had always trusted her brother. He was the one person she thought she could rely on when everything else fell apart. But now, she wasn't so sure. How much of what he had told her was the truth? Was he really trying to protect her, or was he just trying to keep her from the truth, to prevent her from uncovering something even darker than she could imagine? With a sickening feeling, Mia realized that the stakes were higher than she had ever anticipated. She wasn't just looking for the truth anymore. She was fighting for her life. The people around her, her brother, David, even Lily, were all part of something far bigger, and she was a key player in a game that seemed to be rigged from the start. And now, she was faced with an impossible decision: confront Ethan and risk everything, risk losing the only family she had left, or walk away from the truth, from everything, and leave her safety in the hands of people she couldn't trust. Either way, the consequences were unthinkable. But she knew one thing for sure: there was no going back. The choice she made now would shape the rest of her life. And no matter what she decided, it was going to be a fight to the end. Mia's heart raced as she stood on the precipice of everything she had feared. The phone call with the distorted voice, the cryptic warnings, and the shocking revelation about her brother's involvement had all led her to this moment. But what was happening now, the sudden surge of adrenaline, the looming sense of danger, and the weight of a truth she hadn't yet fully grasped, was about to change everything. She had thought she was on the brink of uncovering some hidden conspiracy, a secret tied to the royal family and the dog and the mysterious golden key, but she was wrong. So wrong. The conspiracy she had been chasing was much bigger, much darker than anything she could have ever imagined, and Mia was right at the center of it. Everything in her life, everything she had ever trusted, was coming apart at the seams. Ethan, her own brother, had tried to warn her, but she hadn't understood what he meant. You're not the only one with a key. Those words haunted her now. She thought she had been looking for the truth all along, But she had missed the most critical part of the puzzle, the one piece that no one had told her. The conspiracy wasn't just about the royal family, it was about power. The kind of power that spanned far beyond her comprehension, a web of influence and manipulation that connected people she had never even considered. And MIA had unwittingly stepped right into the middle of it. She had been walking down the wrong path, following the wrong leads, focused on the wrong people. David, who she had once trusted, was just a pawn in this massive game. Lily, the friend she had confided in, had been hiding things from her all along. And now, as MIA rushed to meet Ethan at the spot they had agreed on, it hit her with terrifying clarity. Everyone was connected, but not in the way she had thought. The royal family was only a small part of this puzzle. The real puppeteers, the ones pulling all the strings, were people she had known all her life. People she had trusted. As she approached the alleyway, her phone buzzed again, the screen lighting up with a message from an unknown number. "You're too late. They know where you are." The blood drained from her face. She didn't even need to look over her shoulder. She could feel them, the people watching her, the people who had been tracking her every move for weeks, maybe even months. Panic surged through her as the realization hit. This wasn't just a game anymore. This was life or death. She had been used as a pawn, manipulated into making choices that had put her right where they wanted her. She pushed forward, faster now, the sound of her own footsteps ringing in her ears as she rounded the corner. And then she saw him, Ethan, standing by the door of an old warehouse, his back to her. He had told her to stop, told her to let it go, but MIA didn't care. She was past the point of no return. She had to know the truth. She had to confront him, no matter what it meant. "Ethan," she called out, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and determination. "I know what's going on. I know what you're hiding." He turned slowly, his face unreadable. His eyes flickered with something MIA couldn't quite place, but there was no mistaking the tension in his shoulders, the way he seemed ready to bolt at any moment. "MIA," he said, his voice cold and distant, "you need to get out of here. You don't know what you're dealing with. It's bigger than you think." MIA stepped closer, her heart pounding as she stared at him. "What do you mean? You've been lying to me. All this time, you've been a part of it, haven't you? This isn't just about the royal family or the dog, is it? This is about control. About power." Ethan's eyes shifted nervously, but he didn't respond. It was as if the weight of her words had stunned him into silence, and for a moment, MIA thought maybe, just maybe, she had broken through. But then, the sound of footsteps echoed through the alley, sharp and fast. MIA whirled around, her pulse leaping into her throat, but it was too late. Figures appeared out of the shadows, surrounding her with deliberate precision. They moved like a coordinated force, their eyes trained on her as if they had been expecting her all along. One of them stepped forward tall, imposing, wearing a dark suit that seemed out of place in the grimy alley. His face was familiar, though MIA couldn't place where she had seen him before. And then it hit her. Mark. Ethan's old friend. The one who had always been too charming to trust. But why was he here? "You've been a problem, MIA, Mark said, his voice smooth, almost too calm for the situation. "But it's time for that to end." Before she could react, the last thing she saw was Ethan stepping backward, his eyes flicking between her and the group. A silent apology, a look of resignation. Then, in a shocking twist, he turned and disappeared into the darkness. MIA stood frozen, 1,000 thoughts crashing through her mind. Betrayed. The word kept repeating, but she couldn't make sense of it. Ethan, her brother, had just walked away, leaving her to face the people who had been pulling the strings all along. She felt the ground beneath her tremble as Mark and the others closed in, their footsteps drawing nearer, until the space between them seemed suffocating. "You didn't think it would be that easy, did you?" Mark sneered, reaching for a small device on his belt. With a swift motion, he activated something, and MIA felt her body go rigid. It was as if the air itself had thickened, and her limbs felt heavy, sluggish. "Let me tell you something, MIA, Mark continued, his face twisting into a smirk. "This whole game, it's not about the dog or the key or some royal family. It's about the real power. And you've been part of the plan all along. You're just too naive to see it." In that moment, MIA understood. She wasn't just a pawn in someone's game, she was the game. She had been the target, the one they had manipulated, controlled, and now, they had her cornered. The urgency of it all crashed over her, and in a flash of adrenaline, MIA fought against the paralysis gripping her. Her mind raced. She couldn't let this be the end. Not yet. She had to break free, had to find a way out. She wasn't going to let them win, not when the truth was so close. But as Mark's hand moved toward her, a sharp, final twist of fate pulled her back into the darkness she had been fighting to escape. Mia's mind raced as she fought against the overwhelming sensation of paralysis creeping up her limbs. Her heart pounded in her chest, but despite the cold dread pooling in her stomach, there was a flicker of clarity. She couldn't just stand here and wait to be taken. Not after everything she'd been through, after all the lies, the betrayals, and the pieces of the puzzle that were finally coming together. There had to be a way out. There had to be something, anything, that could stop Mark and the others from carrying out whatever dark plans they had in store for her. She wasn't going to let this be the end of her story. With a surge of adrenaline, MIA pushed against the invisible force that had her trapped, digging her heels into the damp, cracked pavement of the alley. She could hear Mark's mocking voice in the background, but it faded into the white noise of her determination. She wasn't going to die here. She wasn't going to be just another pawn. She had come this far, and now she was going to finish this. It all clicked. The key, the dog, the royal family, the cryptic messages, and the betrayal that had haunted her every step. They had used her. She had been so focused on the dog and the royal connection that she had missed the biggest part of the puzzle. It wasn't about bloodlines or ancient legacies, it was about control. About keeping the key to the power, to the money, to everything that could shape the future of an entire nation in the hands of a few. Mark was no mere player in this game. He was part of a much larger conspiracy, one that had started long before MIA ever even crossed their path. But what was even more terrifying was the realization that her brother, Ethan, had known. He had known and had chosen to walk away, to leave her to face this on her own, all in the name of self-preservation. The weight of that betrayal hit her harder than anything else. How could he have abandoned her like that? How could the person she trusted most have turned his back, leaving her to confront the truth about a corrupt system that could destroy her? As Mia's vision began to blur with fear, something in her snapped. She wasn't going to let Ethan's choice dictate her fate. She wasn't going to let the shadow of his betrayal consume her. This was her fight, and she was going to win it. She had to. The rush of energy that coursed through her was electric. Mia's body tensed, every muscle straining as she twisted and shoved against the force holding her in place. She could feel her hands and feet loosening, the grip on her slipping. In that moment, she found a shred of control, a single moment where she could act. She swung her elbow back into the man closest to her, catching him off guard. He grunted, staggered, and she used the momentum to push forward, shoving herself out of the circle of shadows that had surrounded her. Mark's voice snapped through the tension, his anger rising. "You're not going anywhere, MIA," he shouted, his voice full of fury, but it was already too late. MIA had broken free. She darted toward the alley's entrance, her breath shallow but steady. "Run, MIA. Run." Ethan's voice came from behind her, weak and distant, as if he'd been trying to reach her all along. It wasn't too late to save herself. She just had to keep moving, keep running, keep fighting. But as she reached the end of the alley, a voice called out from the darkness, a familiar voice that froze her in her tracks. "MIA, wait." MIA whipped around, breathless, eyes wild. There, standing just outside the shadows, was David. His face was pale, eyes wide, his whole demeanor shaking as if he had just seen the very thing that haunted his nightmares. "What are you doing here?" MIA asked, the words coming out sharper than she intended, her pulse throbbing in her neck. David stepped closer, his eyes darting nervously. "I'm here to help you. You have to trust me." MIA couldn't believe what she was hearing. Trust him? After everything? But before she could say anything, David raised his hand, his fingers trembling, and pulled something from his pocket, a small, weathered envelope, sealed with an intricate crest MIA immediately recognized. "My father," David said in a hoarse whisper. "He's the one pulling the strings. He's the one who orchestrated all of it, the royal family, the dog, the key. It was never about some legacy. It's all about control. My father is trying to take the throne. And he'll do anything to make sure no one stands in his way. I'm trying to stop him, MIA. I swear to you. This envelope has everything you need. The final piece. You need to read it. Mia's heart stopped. The man who had been by her side through all of this, the man she had trusted, the one she thought had been helping her, was part of this twisted conspiracy all along. David? No. It didn't make sense. But then she saw it, the desperation in his eyes, the sorrow, the regret. He wasn't lying. Whatever his father had planned, whatever dark empire he was trying to build, David had been forced into it, just like MIA had. But he had wanted to stop it. Wanted to tear it all down. David stepped closer, his breath ragged. You don't understand. My father has made a deal with people who control everything. The royal family was never meant to take over, it was just a means to an end. He's got the keys to something that could change the world. And now, MIA, it's in your hands. As MIA took the envelope, her mind was already spinning, trying to process everything she'd just learned. What had David just said? The keys to something that could change the world. What was inside the envelope? But before she could even open it, Mark was behind her again, faster than she could anticipate. His fingers reached for her wrist, pulling her back into the alley. No, MIA, he hissed. You don't get to control this. You don't get to take this from me. MIA struggled against his grip, but it was no use. His strength was overwhelming. Mark, stop, she screamed, her voice breaking, the weight of everything crashing down on her. This isn't just about power anymore. It's about people's lives. But as she looked up at his face, she saw it, something she hadn't expected. Fear. Fear in his eyes. For the first time, she understood. He wasn't doing this for power. He wasn't the villain she had painted him to be. He was scared. Just like her. Scared of what would happen when the truth came out. And that's when MIA realized the final twist, the real power wasn't in the key, or the dog, or even the royal family. It was in knowledge. Whoever controlled the truth controlled everything. And the envelope she held contained that truth. The truth that would unravel everything. Mark's hand shot out, but before he could stop her, MIA tore open the envelope, and the truth came pouring out, more shocking than she could have ever imagined. As the last remnants of the envelope crinkled between her fingers, Mia's eyes scanned the documents she had just uncovered. She had expected revelations, secrets, betrayal, power plays, but what she found left her breathless. The pages were filled with names, dates, and events stretching back decades, all tied together by a single, horrifying truth. The royal family, the dog, the golden key, it was all part of a plan that spanned generations, orchestrated by an unseen hand. But even more unsettling was the final line in the document, the one that had made Mia's heart skip a beat. The key to everything is in your blood, MIA. You are the heir to the throne. It didn't make sense. She wasn't a princess. She wasn't part of any royal lineage. But the more she thought about it, the more it clicked. Her mother, her family history, the mysterious events surrounding her father's disappearance, it all started to line up. MIA had spent her entire life chasing a mystery that was tied to her own identity, and it hit her with such force that it felt like the ground was slipping beneath her feet. You're the one who was meant to lead, David whispered, his voice full of both awe and fear as he stepped closer. His eyes were wide, almost pleading, but there was a deep sadness behind them. It's in your blood, MIA. You don't have to accept it, but it's the truth. You have the power to change everything. You can stop all of this. MIA shook her head, the weight of the discovery too much to bear. She wasn't ready for this. She couldn't be the person they wanted her to be. She had no desire to rule or control people, but what David was saying was undeniable. The documents confirmed it. Her life had been a chess game all along, a game where she had never even known the rules. She looked around, at Mark, at David, at the shadows of those who had manipulated her, and for the first time, MIA understood the true depth of what was at stake. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about power, the kind of power that could shape nations, dictate the course of history, and alter lives forever. Mark, MIA said, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her, you've been a part of this for so long. But you're not the one who controls it anymore. I don't want this power, but I won't let it destroy me or anyone else. I'll stop it, and I'll make sure it never falls into the wrong hands again. Mark stood silent for a moment, his face unreadable. It wasn't until MIA made the decision to leave that he spoke again. You can't change what's been set in motion. You think it's over, but it's just the beginning. MIA didn't answer. Instead, she took one final look at the darkness around her, the uncertainty, the danger, the web of lies, and made her way toward the light. The light that represented freedom, closure, and a choice. Days passed, and as the dust settled, MIA began to piece her life back together. She still didn't know what to make of the documents, or the truth about her family, but one thing was certain, she had taken control of her own fate. She wasn't a puppet in anyone's game. She didn't need to wear a crown to find purpose in her life. MIA was free, in a way she hadn't been in a long time. The world continued to spin on, indifferent to the choices she had made, the truths she had uncovered, but MIA had changed. Her perspective was no longer clouded by the search for answers, it was about finding herself, about reclaiming the power within her to choose her path. There were still questions left unanswered, things that didn't fully make sense, but MIA had come to understand that some mysteries were never meant to be fully solved. Life didn't always offer neat resolutions or perfect endings. And just when MIA thought she could finally rest, just as she began to believe the storm had passed, the phone rang. It was an unknown number. MIA hesitated, her pulse quickening, the lingering sense of unease creeping back into her chest. Should she answer? Was it over, or was there still more to this story? Her finger hovered over the screen for a moment longer, and then, with a deep breath, she pressed answer. The voice on the other end was calm, measured, and full of secrets MIA was sure she wasn't ready for. Ms. Carter, the voice said. We need to talk. Mia's heart stopped as she glanced out the window, the evening sun casting long shadows over the street. The story wasn't over. It was far from over. And this time, she wouldn't be the one caught off guard. The truth, she realized, wasn't just something you uncover, it's something that follows you, something that never fully lets go. And as the call ended with a soft click, MIA knew that her life was about to take another turn, one she couldn't predict, but one that would forever change everything she thought she knew. As she stood there, a single thought ran through her mind. Who's pulling the strings now? The camera faded to black. And just like that, the story left the audience hanging one last twist, one final unanswered question. Something told them Mia's journey was just beginning, and the mystery, no matter how many pieces she thought she had found, was far from over. The door had only just opened, and what lay beyond it was darker, deeper, and more complex than anything she could have imagined. But MIA was ready. Or, at least, she thought she was. The story lingered in the air, an unresolved mystery that would haunt every viewer long after the credits rolled.